So it's over a year since the referendum in the UK. Huge surprise for all of us. I know not for you. Tell us, how do British voters feel today about Europe, about Brexit, about these negotiations?
There isn't an issue that I've seen in Britain where more people had a more sophisticated point of view. Not necessarily that it was accurate, but they had debated it. They had read all about it. They studied the issues. They read the facts on both sides. They read the statistics on both sides. I give the British electorate significant credit. In the Irish referendum, the debates and conversations that happened as part of that were brilliant. There was substance. It wasn't the usual liar and cheat and thief. There wasn't the acrimony. People were emotional, and they felt passionately about where they stood. But they took in and disseminated information. And the same thing in Brexit. I was here as well. I went to both Remain and Leave parties. And by the way, the Remain parties were much better at 10 a.m. and the Leave parties were much better at 3 a.m. It was just fascinating to watch this. But that's part of what's great about this population, and part of what we're losing in America is the willingness to hear things that we don't agree with from people we don't believe in, and at least factor them into our decisions.
What is it that we should all have been paying much more attention to in the autumn, in the spring and the summer of 2016 that would have told us where things were heading in that Brexit referendum?
For the Leave campaign, they should have been more focused on the idea that you could support Leave and be a Lib Dem, be a Labourite, be a Conservative. They discovered this in the last 2 or 3 weeks. So if you went to a Leave campaign office, people who for a lifetime had been slagging each other off were now working on the same side, and they loved it. For one brief, shining, beautiful moment in this country, your partisanship didn't matter. And there was an embrace of that. And if they'd figured that out earlier, they could have done even better. And if they had decided to make a commitment to remain that way in their support for Leave, to remain less partisan and more united over ideas, it would have been a much better political system here. And then for the Remain people, they had no idea that their national spokespeople were hated by the other side, distrusted by the other side. You don't have the most hardcore partisan politicians making the case because you don't have credibility among anyone else but your own political party. I think the Remain campaign was the worst campaign I've seen in 25, 30 years. I think the Leave campaign captured a sense, a human sense of the desire for personal control over their lives and a rejection of those who say, I know better than you. I'll make that decision for you. And I took a lot of the techniques on both sides and brought them back to America afterward.
I know you've been doing some very interesting focus group and polling work in the UK and in Europe in recent weeks. What can you tell us about how Britons feel about Brexit now, and what sort of Brexit they want, and would they like another referendum?
No.
What is the state of public opinion?
No. The state of public opinion is no more votes, no more elections. By the way, and they're actually saying, stop! I should say, stop. They're saying it with a lower voice than I just did. And I think that hurt the Prime Minister. Why do you go to an election when you already had a sufficient majority? Why do you make people go through it when they already just did a vote on Europe that they actually didn't want to do? The British don't live their lives through politics. The politicians might, but the average person here is more concerned about what happens to their football team than they are their member of parliament. And when you force them to vote, they resent it and they punish you for doing it. I believe that was part of the punishment for David Cameron when he called for a European vote that nobody demanded, and it was part of the punishment for Prime Minister May when she called for an early election, a snap election, that nobody said we need to do this. There is a remarkable sensibility, and I wish I could speak British, but there's a remarkable sensibility to this population, a common sense. The phrase doesn't connect to them, but I know it from an American perspective, which is you may not be the most educated person, but you know right from wrong. You know what you need to do to raise your kids. You know that hard work brings about good things and laziness doesn't. That exists very deeply in this population.
I mean, is your sense that the population want the government to crack on with Brexit? I mean, do you think there's a feeling that they would like a different kind of, they have any preference over different flavours of Brexit? I mean, have you got any sense of that?
Two things. Number one is that they don't want to vote. Only about a third of the country wants to vote again. Two is that there's greater support for Leave today. Leave won 52%. Now, if the referendum were held, it would win by 58%. And three is they want it done competently. They want it done effectively. They believe that there is going to be a financial benefit from leaving. They want control of Britain's borders. They want control of who comes in and who leaves the country. This is all about control. And that phrase I assumed was much more American, but it's not. If you're a typical resident of the United Kingdom, you don't want your government telling you how to think or what to do, and you certainly don't want some government in Brussels telling you how to think or what to do. The side that offered them greater control is the side that they ended up voting for.